You're now watching Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.
All right, Jimmy Ott and Paul Stone, as we get ready for the bowl season. Boy, we getting them started quickly, I tell you that. Army, Navy, and a handful of bowls to get started. And, you know, a lot of times, Paul, you and I are on the same page, but we'll start right out the chute. This is not the scripted network. You take us out, I'll take us out. Well, it is when it comes to this one. But Army, Navy, side and total, we have a difference of opinions. I'll let you go first, sir, and start with this one. Army is 6.5, 38.5. That's 10 points up from last year's total at 28.5. Of course, 16 straight unders until last year, and it was 10-7 with 2.5 minutes to go. And overtime allowed it to get over that short number of 28.5. So you could say that 17 straight years, the under has been the right side.
Yeah, this has historically obviously been a low-scoring series, not a whole lot of plays, and these teams have great familiarity, obviously, with the unique option offenses that they run, and we'll be on the opposite side of both the side and total here, so we'll see how this turns out. But first of all, both these service academies really got out of the gate nicely and were at least part of the playoff conversation for much of the season. Navy starts out 6-0. Army took it a little bit further, 9-0. Both their playoff aspirations pretty much taken care of dramatically by Notre Dame. Notre Dame defeats Navy 51-14 on October 26th. And then Notre Dame defeats Army 4 weeks later, 49-14. So pretty similar score there. But I just like Army's overall body of work compared to Navy's, in my opinion. The cadets, first of all, they responded really nicely after the loss to Notre Dame. They defeated Texas San Antonio 29-24. And then just this past Friday in the American Athletic Conference title game there on the banks of the Hudson, defeated a really solid Tulane squad 35-14. They were in control the whole time. Really played well in that game. When you talk about Army, you got to talk about their tough guy quarterback, Bryson Daly. Just a bulldog of a quarterback, 1,480 yards rushing, 5.6 yards per carry. Leads the nation in rushing touchdowns with 29 rushing touchdowns. And also, when he throws the ball, he's pretty effective, 877 yards. Not surprisingly, 11.2 yards per attempt, and 8 touchdown passes against only 1 interception. So I just think this Army team is playing a little bit better. Again, their body of work and kind of blending into my final comment on the side, and I'll just go right into the total if that's okay. Navy to me, whereas Army responded pretty well after getting thrashed by Notre Dame, Navy not so much. They showed some chinks in their armor down the stretch. Lost in Houston to Rice 24-10, got shut out by Tulane 35-0. And what concerned me about Navy's performances against those two teams, Rice and Tulane, Navy only averaged 3.2 yards per carry in those two games. What is Army going to do defending that Navy offense with the familiarity that they have? I do understand your position, though, liking Navy. You can throw the records out, first of all. This is an emotional rivalry, and they are. Navy's familiar with all the eye candy and all the motion, misdirection, that veer offense. They see it every day. They have much more of a grip on it than most of Army's opponents. So I certainly don't discount Navy's chances here. And the dog has covered. From your position, the Dogs covered 8 out of the last 10. So this has been an underdog-dominated series. But I like this. This is uncorrelated, and I think your positions would be described as uncorrelated as well. I like the favorite and the under. I like Army minus 6.5 and the game to stay under the total of 38.5.
Well, and there's no doubt, and not excuse making, but the Rice game was, as the longest weather delays we had this year, and you had multiple delays. This thing was, I think, a total of over 3 hours in rain delays. And, well, I guess maybe the visiting clubhouse, that's a little bit of an excuse. These are two programs that are not into excuse making. Don't have that. But the Tulane game, and I also thought this was residual effect on Tulane's side as well. Shutting out Navy was a false sense of accomplishment. there because Horvath went down in the first quarter of play. And when he went out, they really got shut down. Let's face it, we've seen Army without their starting quarterback this season as well, and it's a major drop-off. And I think these two quarterbacks are why I like the over as well because, man, I saw early in the season, 44 seconds ago, when Navy's got the ball at their own 23 in Birmingham, and boom, they'd strike for a 77-yard touchdown. That's not Navy. So that's not – even with Keenan Reynolds and Malcolm Perry, I mean, they weren't throwing the ball like that. And I just think that this is usually an auto play for me on the under, but those quarterbacks are different. And they've proven to be different. And the combined 14-9 over. You took the military schools in Iowa, the source of the three lowest totals in college football the last few years. You're profitable. Iowa was a profitable over team as well because their total value had been buried so low because of last year and previous years. Paul, you get to this game and why it's going under for so many years. And just like when a finesse-oriented team can't stop a power running game, you can't stop what you don't practice against. Well, they practice against this all the time, so they usually are right there. But I just think that the quarterbacks, where they do everything on it, and sometimes watching these Army and Navy passing games are it's tough to watch. Not this year. And we know they can run it as well. Horvath is a go for this game. And when they got shut out against Tulane, that even carried over to the next game where they were shut out at halftime against East Carolina. So 6 straight quarters, they got it going on. Boy, if you had the under ticket in that one, I feel sorry for you because that was a horrible beat, 3-0 at halftime. But both, and you said it as well. 6.5 points is a lot for this series. I mean, that is it's a low total to begin with. I'm going to go over, but 6.5 points. And I'm just giving a little bit of situational handicap with the availability of Horvath. I think he means just that much. We both saw these two teams get outmanned when they stepped up in class against Notre Dame. But I thought Navy was a little bit more self-induced. They fumbled more in that game than they did all year. And I mean, just a lot of self-induced problems. They did have over 300 yards and that moved the ball at time. I love both of these quarterbacks. Kid from Texas for Army, Horvath is both of them. The way they play, they're going to get injured. So I'm like and we saw that with Tulane. Man, they shut out Navy. Well, on paper that looks good. And what happened to them? They couldn't stop a nosebleed the next two games against Memphis on Thanksgiving night and against Army up in West Point for the American Conference Championship game. So I might reduce my bet a little bit based on my respect for you, Paul, but I'm still going to go with Navy in the over. You got Army in the under. So odd, but, we'll make up for that on a dual pick a little bit later on in the show. Anything else you want to add to comment on what my angles for this matchup?
No, I see where you're coming from. I mean, this is a unique game because they run such unique offenses that nobody else runs. So the familiarity component, I think, obviously has a lot to do, and the fact that these are such healthy, bitter rivals. The fact that this has been a underdog-dominated series in recent years, and also a under-dominated series, just because, again, whereas most people. There's so much discipline involved in playing your keys and staying in your lane and so forth. Most defenses who are not familiar with it, they're naturally going to go with some of the eye candy and get put out of position.
Would you agree, though, that both of these passing games are more potent than usual combined, collectively?
No, they are passing more effectively than they have in the past. They do a good job of, they'll run it 10, 11, 12 times in a row. And then on 1st and 10, they fake that dive and trickle down the line a little bit and then pull back in the pocket and the guy's streaking over the middle wide open. So, yeah, and they get the ball to them. And in some years they've had trouble not only, when I was a sports writer, a coach said, writer asked him why he didn't throw the ball more, and he said, "Well, we don't have any trouble throwing it. We just have trouble catching it, So that's why we don't throw it. Sometimes we don't throw it very well, and then other times when it's there, we don't catch it. So they have It just seems like these guys now, not only the service academy wide receivers, guys who historically you don't think of as being sure-handed, but at all levels of college football, these guys' hands are better than they used to be, in my opinion. We just see not only the miraculous athletic grabs, but just they're a little bit more sure-handed, it seems like. And certainly these teams have a better, more prolific passing attack than in years past, and both have talented quarterbacks.
Those gloves are all but modern day Stickum. I mean, they really do help. I mean, they're like Velcro, a lot of them. Earn a chance at $10,000 in bonus credits with BetRivers prop backs. Place NBA same game parlays to collect player card prop backs and earn rewards. You win based on how your player performs. Log into BetRivers.com and the BetRivers app to place your bet and get your pack. Let's move on to the bowl game. South Alabama in Western Michigan. Opt-outs, transfer portal, who's in the portal, who's not, who's staying, what coach is leaving, what coordinator's leaving. South Alabama and Western Michigan both at 6-6 at the Salute to Veterans Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. The running back for South Alabama, Bothwell, averaging, just a really productive back. But that was kind of the deal. He's entered his name into the transfer portal, but Coach Major Applewhite saying the part of the deal is he's going to play. He's going to play in this bowl game. Now, the quarterback who was hurt late in their last game, Lopez, is still in a boot and is not practicing. South Alabama 57.5 over Western Michigan from the MAC.
Yeah, this is just one of those games. It's hard to get a grip on. These teams play, in different conferences, obviously, don't have any common opponents. Western Michigan's a team that had to defeat their rival, Eastern Michigan, 26-18 in the regular season finale to achieve bowl eligibility at 6-6. But the Broncos didn't really beat anybody, don't have a whole lot of meat on the bone, so to speak. I don't have a great feeling on this one. If the number ticks up above 7, currently South Alabama, as you mentioned, favored by 7 there at BetRivers. If it were to get above 7, I might take a small position on Western Michigan. My inclination is when you don't know the motivation levels of the teams and so forth, I kind of lean my process slightly towards the underdog, but really no official position for me in this one.
All right, let's move on to the Frisco Bowl. We both like this one, and 10-2 Memphis Tigers off of that big win on Thanksgiving night down in New Orleans against Tulane. We talked about this team was maybe the top candidate for the Group of 5 entry into the college football playoff. But the big win against in Tallahassee it proved not to be so big, and they got tripped up the next week in Annapolis against the previously mentioned Navy midshipmen. And the Frisco Bowl in Texas, 2.5, 56.5 against West Virginia. Neil Brown saved his job last year, but he couldn't this year. He is now out as head coach for the West Virginia Mountaineers. Will not coach this game in his players here. We both like Memphis minus the 2.5 here, Paul.
Yeah, so much of the bowl handicap, again, boils down to motivation, who wants to be there. And I believe Memphis has the edge in that department in this particular game. Memphis is a school that has openly sought membership in the Big 12 in the past, and they've been rejected to this point. So I think the opportunity to play a Big 12 team in West Virginia will certainly be a check mark in Memphis's corner. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, West Virginia going to be without their head coach, their former head coach now, Neil Brown, who was fired back on December 1st after 6 seasons there in Morgantown. Looks like West Virginia has winded down their coaching search, could name a coach any day now. Former head coach Rich Rodriguez, among the most prominent name probably mentioned in connection with that job. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on that front. Meanwhile, as for the bowl game, West Virginia offensive coordinator Chad Scott will serve as the interim head coach for West Virginia. I think it's important to note, we talk about motivation, and that quarterback position is so very important. And this game is a homecoming for Memphis quarterback Seth Hennigan. He played at tradition-rich Denton Ryan High School, Denton, Texas, only about 20 or 25 miles from the Toyota Stadium there in Frisco where this game's going to be played. So he's got a lot of motivation there. He'll have a lot of friends and family in the stands. He actually played at Denton Ryan for his father, who's head coach there, Dave Hennigan. So he's going to have a little extra juice for this one, in my opinion. Memphis likes to throw the ball. They throw it about 40 times a game. West Virginia, they don't defend the pass very well. They give up an average of 9.1 yards per pass attempt. That ranks them only 131st out of 134 FBS teams. So I think Hennigan's going to have some success throwing the ball against West Virginia. West Virginia only has 19 sacks on the season, and that's part of the reason they don't defend the pass very well, is because they don't get any pressure on the quarterback. I like Memphis to win this game over West Virginia by more than a field goal in Frisco.
Nice to have those seniors also playing that last game. So it's going to be that's it for Hennigan, and boy, he has been very productive in his career at Memphis, to say the least. I mean, 13,000 yards. That's a decent amount. 13,000 yards and 95 touchdowns in 3 seasons as a starter for Memphis, going back to Denton to play in the shadows of North Texas University. We're both on Memphis in that one. Yes, indeed, I like that angle as well. Snub of the Big 12, taking on a Big 12 team. So we're both on Memphis in that one. Don't forget, also over at Bet Rivers, players can play same-game parlays in college football and NFL games to earn squares. Our exclusive Squares game offers additional chances at profit boost, bonus bets, and many $10,000 jackpots. Visit BetRivers.com with the BetRivers app for more details on how to get your squares. Let's move on. A couple of more bowls to talk about. The Boca Raton Bowl. I've been to Boca. Nice place. So James Madison, the Dukes at 8-4, 7.5 and 53.5 over Western Kentucky. The Hilltoppers with as many as 20 players entering the transfer portal here, Paul. That's always a concern.
Yeah, I mean, they've got close to 20 players in the transfer portal, as you mentioned. At least 8 of those starters. Some of them, with history as our guide anyway, will likely play for the Hilltoppers. They have played in the bowl game for head coach Tyson Helton in the past, but it kind of remains to be seen. Again, it's just a huge guessing game. How many will play, and who will the players be that choose to take the field for this bowl game that are in the portal? One of those in the portal is their current starting quarterback, Caden Velkamp, who took over for TJ Finley when Finley was injured earlier this year. Finley also in the transfer portal. Velkamp in the portal. Unclear whether he's going to play in the bowl game, so you lack clarity there. James Madison, on the other hand, they appear to only have a handful of players in the portal. Their left tackle, Jesse Ramil, among those in the portal, but they don't seem to have nearly the number of potential no-shows or opt-outs for the bowl game. There's just really not a clear picture of who's in and who's out from my perspective, so this will be a hard pass on my end.
All right, the final one we're going to talk about is the LA Bowl, 6-6 Cal out of the ACC. That's right, for against UNLV, 10-3. This line is dipped around. We talked about opening lines that may move a little bit, maybe getting them ahead of the move. And Cal, I like this game at 2.5. Barry Odom is on his way to Purdue. How many players? Now, it's not, to this point, it's not a ton. No notables that we can think about. Hodge Malik Williams, Kevin White, some of the impact players for UNLV seem to all be playing here. Paul, this line was 2.5 when we spoke earlier in the week. Last night, it was 4.5. It's now back to 2.5 at Bet Rivers. So back and forth it goes. Odd, to say the least. 2.5, 51.5. I like Cal here. I gave out Cal against SMU, and that one got a tough blow there. No injury, just sick. And that's right, quarterback Fernando Mendoza was sick and did not dress out. He was on the sideline. He made the trip to Dallas, but he was on the sideline and did not take a snap, and they did not score a touchdown against SMU. It was ugly, to say the least. And let's put it, he was sorely missed, no doubt. 250 yards of offense and no TDs. Barry Odom on his way to Purdue. It's never a great sign, although this is an exciting period for this UNLV roster in that they're excited to play in any type of bowl game, even though they lost their last game. Looked like a bowl team that was cold up in Boise. But I like Cal under a field goal here, minus the 2.5. So about the matchup and also the line movement, how odd that is.
Yeah, that is some odd movement there. Usually you get some opt-outs or some bit of information, and you kind of see a one-sided barrage that either gets capped at some point, kind of stops, or continues in that direction, but not in this Cal UNLV game. Again, the challenge for me anyway in handicapping these mid-tier bowl games is trying to determine which team is going to be more invested in the outcome than the other. In this matchup, you mentioned UNLV is going to be without their head coach, Barry Odom, who after 2 successful seasons in Vegas has moved on to the Big Ten and Purdue. Wide receivers coach Dell Alexander going to serve as the interim head coach in the bowl game for the Rebels. UNLV in this game, they would normally, to be honest, get my first look since it's presents an opportunity for them to knock off a more prominent school. But the Rebels, in my mind anyway, could be somewhat deflated after losing their coach, and also they were 1 win away from making the 12-team playoff. They lost to Boise in Boise this past Friday, 21-7. Just 60 minutes away from being in the playoff, and now they're playing in a mid-tier bowl game. So I kind of question the Rebels, collective team psyche from that perspective as well. Looking at Cal, they finished 6-6 in the regular season, beat an FCS school, a pretty good FCS school in Cal Davis, but their 5 FBS opponents that they defeated to become bowl eligible, none of those teams finished with a winning record. None of them finished with a 500 record. They all had a losing record, a combined record of 20-40 were the 5 teams that Cal defeated. So I'm just really conflicted here. Don't have an opinion. We'll be rooting for the Golden Bears here and rooting for you to cash that ticket and maybe take me out to dinner next time we're in Vegas.
We'll feed you, Paul. Ain't no doubt about that. We'll feed you down here in South Louisiana. You don't have to sweat that at all. We're doing it all through the bowls, all through the college football playoffs, all season long. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott on the Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.